Hello, everyone, and welcome to the midweek program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the education assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are under our visitor center awning yet again to get out of the rain, but no worries. We've got a garden conversation for you today. We've got John Bitner, who's in charge of the special events at the NC State Fairgrounds, and he also has a interesting little hobby growing fruit trees and making jams from those fruits. So we got Carey, our curator, here to have a nice little conversation with John about all the stuff at the fair and the fruit that he grows, and we may even try some weird things. So it should be a good program. Those of you liking this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I think we can pass things over to Dennis and John to have us a nice little garden conversation.
All right, hello. Okay, so today we have with us John Bitner. This is going to be an interesting conversation. It's going to be kind of three different things we're going to talk about. All right, we're going to talk about his job at the State Fair. He is the competitive exhibits coordinator, and that'll be interesting. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is his planting hobby, where he is into exotic fruits. And the third thing we're going to do is you're going to listen to us eat some crackers and try out some of the homemade jams that he's made. And so hopefully we'll have time to get to all three of those. And I'm very excited to have John Bitner here. Thanks for coming out today.
You're welcome.
So John is like J.C. Raulston from Oklahoma. He spent some time in Japan and then back to Oklahoma and then to college.
And then Raleigh.
And then Raleigh. And in Raleigh, he got, through his hobby of being a plant person, got connected with the State Fair and has been working there for like 20 years now.
Well,
right?
I've been there full-time for 8 years.
Full-time for 8?
A little over 8 years. But I started in the competitions, in the competition gardens, 2001, 2002.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, long time.
So long time. So we're going to start with the fair stuff. Yeah. I know it's a little early. We're not really thinking about the fair yet. But those of you who go to the fair, certainly you walk around and you look at the photography competition, and you go look at the 4-H club and see who pickled the best pickles. Yeah. And then you go look at the cake decorating, and then you go over to the other side of the fairgrounds and you look at the flower competition and the potted plants. And then there's the animals too, and the heaviest pumpkin and all that kind of stuff.
And you might want to ride a ride.
Yeah, you might want to do that too. But John is over all of that. If it's an exhibition at the fair and there's a competitive aspect to it, he's in charge of all of it. He got in through being showing flowers, so he got in through the horse side, but he's over all of it now.
I've expanded.
Yeah, so that's very excited. You were telling me earlier how many different entries you have?
Well, we have usually we aim for 30,000 items entered. And my side, I don't manage the large livestock. I do manage chickens, and I used to manage the rabbits and chickens. The rabbits are no longer there, but so I don't manage the cattle and the horse or the pigs, goats, and sheep. But everything else, I manage how it appears in the literature for the contest, and I manage the rule book, and I manage the judging sheets, and I manage the data upload and the data transmittal to downtown to get people paid.
Because there's money involved.
There's money involved. I ordered the ribbons, so I manage.
And all those ribbons are handmade?
Well, ribbons are handmade. They are printed by a machine. The printing on them is done, but the pleating and everything, that's all done. So it takes, well, like the ribbon order goes in now, and it takes till September, October to get the ribbons back. We order a lot of ribbons. But in general, we have about 3,300 people enter items. Okay. And it's between 25 all the way up to 29,000 items.
So some people are entering a lot.
Yeah. And with 3 flower shows, because the flower show is split into like 3.5-day increments. So there's 3 shows over the course of the 11-day fair. We have as many as 11,650 entries.
Just for the flowers?
Just the flowers.
Not the cakes and the pickles?
Basically a third of the entries.
Yeah, okay.
Because in the other categories around the fair, you can only enter one thing. But in the flower show, you can enter hundreds of things.
Okay.
So that skews flower show to having a larger
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I myself have entered the photo contest once or twice.
Yes.
And I'm not very good, so I never, it was just kind of fun to do.
You could have told me, I would have brought a ribbon.
Thanks. Yeah. My wife is much better than me, and she has won once or twice, but that's always very exciting.
Yes.
So tell us who can enter. Is it
Okay.
adults, children?
We have categories for everyone, including group homes or like adult daycare centers where they have activities.
Okay.
And then also special needs, and we don't define special needs. It can be anybody that designates themselves special needs. And they can pretty much enter any category they want. They may have to call us so that we prep the computer to allow them to enter
Sure.
or keep track of them. But we have children categories all the way to senior categories. And there's even some of the categories and some of the areas are for groups or teams. It's just about everything. So most of the state fair is restricted to North Carolina residents, but we do have a few sites where we are part of a national program, and so anyone from anywhere can enter in those categories.
Interesting.
But there's just a few.
So there's flowers, there's flower show part of it.
Yeah.
There's cooking and
Yes, canning,
and stuff. Yeah.
and we have baking. We have bread and cakes, and then we have the cake decorating. A lot of the decorated cakes are not actually a cake; they're just styrofoam blanks.
Oh yeah.
They wouldn't last 11 days. A 2-foot tall cake
Sure.
would.
I feel like that's scandalous.
Yeah.
I feel like you just
Yeah,
come on here
that's
and say
inside
that.
news.
No kidding. honestly.
It's about the decoration, not about.
I
the
guess
cake.
so. Still.
We have cakes that are real cakes, and some people do enter a real cake in the decorated cake area. But those sculptural ones, that's pretty hard to do with.
I guess.
Okay.
I guess.
And, and then like the giant pumpkins. The giant pumpkins, we have a North Carolina area of giant pumpkins, and then we have the international giant pumpkins also. We're a way off site for the Giant Pumpkin Commonwealth. It's an organization that manages the weighing of giant pumpkins worldwide. It's always a big hit, but it always catches people's eye when the biggest pumpkins come from somewhere else. We're like, just this row is international. The other row is, and a North Carolina pumpkin can enter in both contests. The same pumpkin can be in both contests.
Okay.
We tend to have the largest watermelons in North Carolina in October. But so then we have bees and honey, where they have bee products and honey foods. Then we have chickens, poultry. Backyard poultry is a big deal. So we have backyard poultry there, and we have ducks and geese.
Are there any other veggies? Biggest apple or biggest
We do
rutabaga?
biggest sweet potato.
Okay.
And we do most unusually shaped. I think it may just be unusual vegetable. We have
I can get.
yeah, we have like international.
iffy, yeah.
And we have, it can be like any Hispanic vegetable or any Asian vegetable, but you have to know what it is.
Okay.
Because you have to write the name on the tag or else
Sure.
you won't win. We do a big apple contest, and most of the apples come in from the mountains.
Okay.
It takes up a lot of space. Sweet potatoes, we do a large sweet potato display also. So, and then the kids over in that area, the kids can enter decorated sweet potatoes or decorated pumpkins.
Like decorated how? Like with frosting?
They put pipe cleaners and feathers.
Oh, okay.
And
Like a Mr.
sparkles.
Potato Head.
Yeah. They just do whatever they want.
Okay. But that's not for adults. You
That's
can't
for
have an adult
kids.
version.
Those
of
are
that.
children.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And in some of those areas, the pumpkin has to be grown by the child, some of the categories, and others, the child can buy the pumpkin and decorate it. So,
And then there's non-plant and animal stuff, like there's quilts. And,
yes. Needlework.
And the photography, like I mentioned.
and handicrafts and hobbies. That's
Handicrafts, okay.
There's a lot. There's metalwork and leatherworking and beading and stuff like that in handicrafts and hobbies.
Where would I find a list of all these things?
We in the world of state fairs, that list is called a premium book.
Premium book.
And the prize money is called a premium.
Okay.
And so the premium book is launched every year on July 1st.
Okay.
And it's on the State Fair website, which is ncstatefair.org. And I build that book.
Okay.
And so,
Because you're a graphic designer.
so I build that book, and then the website for the fair is also launched, and everything that's in the book is also on the State Fair website. You just have to navigate. It's not set up like a book that you flip pages in. So you have to know where you're going.
Okay.
So a lot of people they print off the chapters they want, and they use that as a guide, and they enter online
To figure out which type of
and if they
contest they want to be in.
if their quilt meets the qualifications.
Oh,
for
yeah,
it. So the book and the website launched July 1st, and the deadline for entry is September 15th, which this year is on a Sunday.
Okay.
And then you generally bring your item to the fair the weekend before the fair.
Mm-hmm.
They are judged on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The fair opens on a Thursday at noon.
And if you bring a photograph, it's got to be framed. And does it have to have wire on it?
It has to have the wire in the back,
Yeah.
not the little claw grips.
Yeah, I've
Because
learned
of
that the hard way a couple times.
Yeah, the
because I keep
lattice
forgetting.
panels we display them on have to have the S hooks.
Yeah.
So we have to have the wire. And that's true for the other areas too. We use the lattice panels throughout the fair. So anything in a frame has to have a wire hanger on the back.
And that's all in the premium book, all the rules.
All the rules.
You just got to read it.
Yes.
Like I don't do.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can always contact the entry office. That's what we call the room where all the knowledge for the contest is. And call the fair, and they'll direct you to the entry office, and we can answer their questions.
So if you want to enter something, how early ahead of time do some of these people start preparing?
Like
if you're going to grow
quilt,
a pumpkin, you got to start soon, right?
And a quilt takes a long time.
Yeah.
Some quilts can take more than a year to make.
Yeah.
So what we advise people is if you're interested in a certain hobby, go ahead and enter in that, because it doesn't cost anything to enter. So go ahead and enter, and then if it doesn't get finished or it doesn't turn out the way you want, there's no penalty for not bringing it to the fair.
Okay.
And you don't have to notify us or anything. It's considered a no-show.
Okay.
And that's because people don't know if their chicken is going to be done molting by
Right.
October.
Or be alive.
Or still alive.
Yeah.
But they're hesitant to enter by September 15th because they're not sure what they're going to have in October. We say go ahead and enter everything.
Sure.
Enter everything you can think you would bring, and then bring the best of what you have.
And in the world of plants, that's very common in like wholesale plants. You want to buy a bunch for your garden center, and you don't pick months ahead of time. You just that week you decide what do they have, what survived the winter.
What's available,
what's available.
Yeah.
So that's an agriculture thing.
Yeah.
Wait until the last second.
We have tailored the plant categories for the potted plants and the like the blooming stems, the cut stems. We've tailored the categories for what's normally at peak bloom in October, middle of October. And there are a few that you really have to do some work to get them to look perfect by October.
What are just a couple examples of some
Dahlias. Dahlias do real well in October. We have the exhibition mums as a category. They tend to bloom better in November. But we get a few entries.
And that's the real big fancy mums, not your garden
ones.
mums.
Yeah. We have garden mums as a category also.
Okay.
And then salvias do well as an entry. Coleus does well as an entry. A lot of tropicals do well because they don't know what winter is, so they just keep going.
They don't care what time of year it is. Yeah.
So we have a lot of tropical categories.
Any dried plants, grasses?
We do dried arrangements, but we don't do any dried. We do grasses, and they can be dried, but the ones that usually win are the still green grasses.
Okay. What are some of the more popular contests
with the most turnout? With the most,
with the hardest to win because there's so much competition.
Well, I will tell you the off the top of my head, the little bitty tiny miniature flower arrangements.
Okay.
We do like a wedding bouquet for Barbie. Little bitty tiny. It has to be a formal bouquet.
Okay. Living flowers or made out of
living
paper?
Flowers. Has to be living flowers.
Okay.
And we'll do so flower arrangement is pretty competitive.
Yeah.
We don't get a ton of entries, but the people compete strongly.
Well, you said there's how many? 10,000 entries?
There's 11,000 over the course of the fair. Average years, 11,650 entries.
Okay.
And I would say 2/3 of those are cut stems.
Cut stems. Okay.
And so, because most people that have a large garden are going to enter every category, and they're going to bring a cut stem, because if there's the only one that showed up, they sort of automatically get a blue ribbon.
That was going to be my next question is, what are some of the contests that it's easy to slide in?
Well, that's hard to say,
And win
because look,
something.
if the weather is bad in the summer, if we have a real dry period and a real high heat summer, a lot of people give up. And I try to tell them, oh no, if you baby your garden, you'll have entries and nobody else will. But I'm also telling that to everybody else. So
Sure.
they're all
So if you want it bad enough.
yeah. But that's, you'd be surprised the stuff people, even on a real bad year, a frost year where we have a frost in the middle of October, people still walk through the door with impressive cut stems.
They've closed them or tinted
they
them or something.
put
to
heat
protect
lamps
them.
on them or
Yeah.
something. They've done the work.
How about some of the non-plant, like, pickled apples or something esoteric?
There have been times that there was like a recall on flour or something,
Uh-huh.
and so there was a lot of problem with the baked goods.
Okay.
But people did show up.
Yeah.
In the world outside of the fair, people will sort of talk like certain hobbies are dying.
Yeah.
And I'm always in the back of the room going, no, sewing is not dead. There are
Okay.
a lot of people sewing.
Yeah.
All kinds of people are sewing.
Okay.
All kinds of people are quilting. All kinds of people are knitting. Those are not dying hobbies.
People are canning.
People are canning.
Uh-huh.
People are dehydrating. We don't have any fermenting, but it's something we could possibly add because there's enough people fermenting foods.
You mean not fermenting for alcohol, but fermenting for pickles and stuff? Yeah.
Sauerkraut and pickles. The food science here has a big role to play in our food culinary competitions.
Uh-huh.
They usually are over there working and they test everything. A lot of fairs don't taste food anymore. They just go by the recipe and the appearance. And we're one of the larger fairs that still taste food.
And there is actually a cooking competition, like best chili and best what other.
It's called the Home Chef Challenge.
Yeah.
And it's done in Dorton Arena. And every day there's a different challenge, usually sponsored by a commodity group like pork or peanuts or something. And it's the flavor of it changes as to whether it's going to be a savory dish or a dessert dish. And people bring in their stuff, and we have panels of judges that taste it, and
Okay.
they get big money.
Yeah. What are some of the big prizes?
Well, like first place in the cooking is $500.
Okay, that's
but
pretty sweet.
those giant pumpkins are one of the highest winners.
Yeah, what do they?
Because
win?
they get like $6 a pound, and they're 2,000-pound pumpkins.
Wow.
Yeah.
$6 a pound. Who knew?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the hobby to do. I mean,
It's hard though.
beef and dairy cattle make good money in their prizes also.
Oh, okay.
So
All right. Yeah.
depends on how much room you have.
Yeah, and getting those big pumpkins. I mean, you have to start. There's certain seed
You have
strains. You have to get the right seed.
They sell them.
Yeah, they do.
That group sells them.
Yeah.
And it's you have to prep under the pumpkin before it gets big,
So you can move
so
the
that
darn
you can
thing.
pick it up with a forklift.
Yeah.
And transport. The transporting is it's sort of like the flowers too. You feel like you deserve a blue ribbon when you walk in the building if every petal is still on the blossom.
Sure, yeah.
Because
And
they
your
fall
pumpkin
apart.
hasn't cracked.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't just drop them in the back seat and drive to the fair and expect that perfect flower to end up in the vase.
All right. Great. Let's see. Other than cash, are there other types of prizes?
Well, we do ribbons, and in the livestock end, they do trophies and belt buckles and,
Okay.
and plaques. And champion level livestock at my end and their end, there's banners, satin banners,
Okay.
along with a ribbon. They'll get a banner.
Okay. Something to hang on the wall.
Yeah. And then with the auctioning that goes on for the sale of champions and stuff, that's money that goes into agriculture education.
Okay.
So if it's a middle school kid, when they graduate from high school, they have money that they won through that process. So
Awesome.
And we do have categories that only are ribbon only. They're not money, but there's very few.
Hey,
Almost
even
all.
a ribbon would be fun. Yeah. So you guys out there, if there's anything you want to know about the competitions, please put it in the chat. And there's clearly a lot of categories. If any of you are into any of that stuff, please think about doing the
Yeah.
fair. I've done, like I said, I've done the photo contest a couple times. It's pretty fun, even if you're bad and don't win. It's still pretty fun to go.
It's addictive.
And you get to walk around and find your entry amongst all the entries. That's pretty exciting too, even
Yes.
if you don't win.
So Marilyn says that she'd love to know more about the themed garden area competition.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that is done a year in advance, basically. You put your name or you get the information to contact us during the fair for next year's contests. And so we have 27 gardens, and they're divided into 9 clusters of 3, and those 3 will be judged against each other. And so you can't lose because they're going to get first, second, or third in any garden theme. We used to have designated themes, like a Japanese garden or North Carolina beach garden or something like that. And we've sort of exhausted the themes.
Sure.
We sort of ran out of ideas. So now they have to have a theme, but they get to make up their own theme, and they just have to describe their theme on their signboard. But getting a garden, they just email me. I guess you can provide my email. They email me, and I put their name on the list. We have not assigned the gardens yet for this year, but we're almost done.
Is that competitive, like first come, first serve? A lot of people are left out?
Yes, well, they have to notify us before in March.
Yeah.
And so we're a month past, but they'll be
Okay.
assigned. And there's always a few people that back out at the last
Sure.
minute. They have all summer to grow their gardens. Most people grow them at home because they live far enough away that it's difficult to come in and water
Care for
them all
it, yeah.
summer. They plant maybe a base crop, and then they drop in showstoppers
Okay.
during the
So they bring
right before the fair.
containers or something
Yeah.
and drop them in.
Yeah,
Okay.
and a lot of people rely on some tropicals because they don't know what winter is, and October doesn't mean shut down. So
Yeah.
but yeah, people have a lot of fun. We have it segregated where there's a section of it that they're scored if they have props, like we prefer homemade props.
Okay, like a mannequin or something?
Decorations or furniture. Or lighting that they made themselves. And so we give points for that in the more decorative gardens. And then we have an area where you can have decorations, but they don't apply towards your score. It's
Okay.
all about garden, all about design, all about health of the plants.
Okay.
And in general, you're always scored better by the health of the plant, not the size.
And do you always run out of spots?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So so it's too late this year, but in October
Yep.
you email him
Yep.
and get your spot for next year.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a good question. If there's any others like that, please drop that in the chat. Anything new for 2024?
Nothing new in my end except for the standard contests that we have that changed their theme.
Uh-huh.
And the theme for the fair this year has not been announced.
Oh, okay.
So it
July
ties in,
1st.
it always ties into that, and so that's when we'll know what the themes are those.
Okay.
And we'll have the cooking contest every day at the fair, but those haven't been announced as to what they are. They'll be similar to the way the same commodity groups usually do it, but we try to do half of them as savory food and half of them as dessert food.
Okay. And in the past, I did read there was a chili contest. And
We had a
there was
chili
what else?
cook-off.
Meatballs, you said, or
Yeah,
sausage balls?
Yeah, and we try to do things that'll transport well.
Uh-huh.
We try to do something that because we don't have it where they cook it on site. They cook
Okay.
it and bring it in already done. So
Sure.
we aim for food that'll transport well.
Okay.
And
casserole
we
day.
try to aim for things that are like pro North Carolina or pro agriculture, so that
Okay.
we aim for those kind of things.
Now, do you have the inside line on the hot new fried food of the year?
I do not.
Oh, see,
I do not.
that'd be pretty interesting to learn that.
Yeah, and people ask every year during the fair when they see me walking around, they'll ask me where certain booths are or which one has the best new food. And we're usually so busy during the fair getting supplies to we don't have time to stop and eat any of the. We have our
Okay.
little secret back doors we knock on to get a corn dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so your local newscaster will know better because they'll be up on all the.
They'll be invited to the big tasting.
There you go.
They have.
Okay. So there's like a press release
Yeah,
day
there's a press
for the
day,
food?
media day where they taste a sample of all the new
Okay.
foods.
All right. Well, I'd like to be there. That'd be pretty fun.
So Catherine would like to know if there are any plans to renovate the garden area since there's so much going on to renovate the other buildings at the fairground.
It's in the plans. I don't know what the schedule is, but there is that part of the fairgrounds can't really be anything else.
Sure.
Because of the drainage and the terrain.
Yeah.
So it'll stay like it is, probably just with maybe a new greenhouse or something. It'll get improved, but I don't know that a lot is going to be done this year. It'll because there's so much going on all around it.
There's like a email newsletter. Would something like that be announced in the email newsletter?
They have a web present and all the social media.
Yeah.
I don't handle those, but
Okay.
so they'll announce it however
Okay.
the word gets out in the media.
Yeah, I was on the website the other day.
Yeah.
There, you can sign up for a newsletter, but I think, there's also an Instagram and a Facebook and a this and a that. So,
So when the decisions are made of when the construction will start, that's when they'll announce. They won't announce in advance. But yes, they know that the flower show is very important. It's very popular. So that
and that is one of the ties back to the original reason for the fair is North Carolina agriculture products, right?
Yes.
So yeah, we have to keep that going.
Yes.
All right, I'm out of questions about the fair. Do you have anything else you want to share, or do you want to move on and talk about the second of our three things?
Oh, let's go ahead and talk about gardening.
Yeah, okay. So you're here today to talk about your exotic fruit collection.
Yes.
And how did you come about to start liking exotic fruits? Like everyone has their own path through gardening.
Well, I've said before that most gardeners my age that have gardened their entire life start somewhere, African violets or bulbs or something that somebody gave them that sparked the hobby, and then they shift to orchids or roses or something. And I've gone through all those iterations.
Okay.
The one that has lasted the longest has been food gardening.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily exotic food gardening, just general food gardening. I've always had vegetables and herbs in the garden, no matter what my hobby was, no matter what my special plant was. But after moving to North Carolina, and partially because I grew up in Asia, I would always visit the Asian markets, and they would have unusual fruits. Sometimes fruits that I knew in Japan, and sometimes not. And I would, of course, buy them, armloads of them.
Okay.
And then I'd be eating them on the way home, and I'd go, I should save these seeds and plant them.
Yeah.
And so I started planting them, and the trees in that greenhouse, it's a 20 by 30 greenhouse, and one row of citrus, which are all grafted trees that I've purchased. But all the rest of it is trees that I grew from seeds from Grand Asia.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yes, so you can do it. It does take at least 10 years, if not 13, 15 years, to get them up to size to fruit.
Okay.
That's, and then in the process of succeeding with certain types of plants, I have found online communities, various types.
Sure, there's a chat group for everything.
And so there are seed swapper people that will send you cuttings or seeds. There's a lot of Americans that have moved. They've retired and moved to the tropics, from Fiji to Hawaii to Puerto Rico to Mexico to northern South America. And they are pretty active in finding small, little-known, smaller trees that are in backyards related to things we might know about, but this little village in the mountains of Bolivia has its own version.
Yeah.
And so you
seed strain or
you
own
trade
race,
seeds, and you end up collecting oddball fruit that doesn't have a common name. I have one that doesn't even have a scientific name.
Oh, really?
So it hasn't fruited yet, so I can't tell you how good it is.
How many plants are in your collection, do you think?
Probably 50.
50
But there's
exotic fruits.
There's 3 rows of 8, 20 something in the greenhouse that are tree size.
Yeah.
And then some are in large pots that get moved out for the summer and in for the winter.
And what about planted outside all year?
Plant outside, out in the garden, it's hundreds and hundreds. It's everything, because it's a 1 acre garden, and fruits, vegetables, and herbs take up like a 40-foot square up by the house, and then the rows are all either bushes, vines, or trees.
Okay.
And so I've learned to sort of take with a grain of salt if a catalog says that it'll live in zone 7. And I've also learned to take with a grain of salt if somebody says, oh, you can't grow that here.
Yeah. Sure.
And so my motivation for my part of the garden, or my involvement in the garden, is what do you got to do to succeed at growing this here? If you want to grow a peach, you might have to do certain things to get good peaches. And is it worth it? I don't want somebody else to tell me it's not worth it. I want to figure out for myself if it's not worth it. And then even some exotic things. When we first moved here, I lived in Garner, and I grew wasabi in the backyard. But I had it in these big tubs that I could slide under the house on hot days.
Okay.
And I would bring it out in the daytime and move it in if it was going to be over 90, and I'd let it spend the night under the house, and it'd be real cold under the house.
Sure.
And being able to have that cool down period, even at night, and then bring them out in the sunshine, I had them for years.
Okay.
I never got the roots big enough to grate and eat, but I did succeed with wasabi for years. I grew rhubarb for years. I finally gave up because it's been getting hotter.
Yeah.
But it's sort of that. If you love rhubarb and you want to grow rhubarb, what do you have to do?
Okay.
And rather than just say, oh, it's too difficult, I was like going, well, these are the things people do to be able to succeed with rhubarb.
So back when you grew rhubarb, what did you have to do?
You try to buy the largest roots you could find. And at that time, there was a local garden center that had roots in from the Delmarva Peninsula, where Delaware, Virginia, and Maryland are, from a rhubarb farm there, and they were large roots. And so you would get big stalks right off the bat. And so you might be able to get the plant to go for maybe 3 years, but even, $5 for a large root, you're going to get 4 pies out of that root.
Sure.
So it was always worth it just to buy a few if the large roots came in.
Okay.
It's sort of the size of the plant you start with more so than the variety.
Okay.
Unfortunately, with the higher heat, rhubarb tends to not be very red. Even the red forms aren't so red here. So your rhubarb pie ends up looking like celery pie, but
okay.
But it tastes like rhubarb.
Okay.
But I solved that problem by growing another plant to go with it. The hibiscus that they use for red tea.
Sure. Hibiscus sabdurifa, right?
Sabdurifa. Or roselle,
yeah.
or jamaica in Mexico. If you grow that, and it has a nice berry flavor.
And it's also kind of tart, right?
Yeah, it marries well with rhubarb, and it dyes the pie red.
Okay.
See?
There you go.
There you go.
So you
one loves the heat and hates the cold. The other one loves the cold and hates the heat.
All right.
So I grow a lot of that because you can dry it, and you just have to start it early and get it out in the heat.
Yeah.
And it has to be in full blazing hot sun, or it's not going to set any flowers. And that's the reason for the yard is it's a wide open yard. It was just lawn.
Right.
And so I said, sunshine.
Yeah. That's why you picked that spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorites?
Of the
right
fruiting
now?
plants,
Yeah.
my all-time favorite fruit is loquat.
Loquat,
Which
okay.
I brought loquat jam.
Okay.
They'll be fruiting soon.
Yeah.
They do fruit here, but they don't fruit reliably here. We did have them in Japan. They're known as biwa in Japanese. But where we lived in Japan, they didn't fruit regularly either. They were like every 3rd or every 5th year. Here, it's more like every 10th year.
Okay.
If you plant them up against the wall of a house on the south side or the east side, you can. It's sheltering them from winter wind helps keep the fruit on.
Mm-hmm.
They bloom at the end of like Thanksgiving to Christmas is when they bloom, and then the fruit starts setting in March, and it ripens usually by May.
Okay.
It tastes like a sweet tart candy mixed with an apricot.
Oh, sounds good.
Yeah, and they're pretty nice. The problem is that squirrels and raccoons and possums also think they're pretty nice.
Sure.
So,
And in the middle of winter, they're desperate for anything.
that time of year, it's the first fruit like that they get, and they have an aroma.
Yeah.
Another reason why I like the tree is that you can make tea from the leaves. You can make a dye from the leaves if you want.
Okay.
And in Mexico and northern South America, they use the wood as a smoking wood for meat.
Okay.
It's not as strong as like mesquite or anything, but so it's multi-use. It's a small tree.
Okay.
They're easy. They're forgiving. They grow them in parking lots in Florida. I mean, they're easy trees. But around here and further north, they're common as an evergreen, but they don't regularly fruit from here north. But maybe with the warming temperatures, we'll get a few more.
Maybe, yeah. We're going to be like northern Florida pretty soon
Yeah.
here. Trends keep going.
The one I have in the yard is fruiting, and I have a large fruiting variety in the greenhouse that has proven to not be winter hardy.
Yeah.
And so, but it fruits a month earlier.
So loquat's a favorite. Any
Loquat's a
others on
favorite.
the list? What are your top three? What are your two others?
I'm a fan of apples,
Oh, yeah.
which are very difficult to grow here.
Yeah.
Easy in the mountains, hard to grow in Raleigh. I don't have a problem. I succeed regularly with Arkansas Black, which is a very disease-resistant apple.
Mm-hmm.
I don't bother with storing them. In fact, they usually don't make it to the kitchen. They get eaten in the yard.
Okay.
But I also like Gold Rush apples, which are better grown in the mountains, but I do get a few apples on. This year, I'm getting a lot of apples.
Okay.
And it was just the perfect winter.
Sure.
But Gold Rush is my all-time favorite flavor of apple.
Okay.
Kiwis do really well. Fuzzy kiwis, which no one grows because they're monster vines
Yeah.
that basically kudzu with fruit.
Uh-huh.
I always joke that they should make all-season pruning shears that you can just hook to your vine arbor.
Yeah.
So that when you walk by, you just give the
Clip the
kiwi
kiwi
vine
a
a
little,
haircut
okay.
because they see an oak tree and they want to grow to the top of that tree.
All right.
Hardy kiwis are on the invasive list north of here.
Yeah.
Fuzzy kiwis, as far as I know, are not on the invasive list anywhere, but it's a much more robust vine that really can put on some growth.
Side note, we have a kiwi in the plant sale, a cultivar named Jenny.
Is it a fuzzy or a hardy?
Fuzzy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We have Vincent, which is the female. I can't remember the name of the male. It's not Vincent. And then we have one of the new that self-pollinating fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the golden form,
Uh-huh.
which will be blooming this year. It's blooming in a week.
All right.
The only problem with fuzzy kiwis is that you can't eat them right off the vine. You have to cure them. You have to harvest them like the first week of November and let them sit in a cool, humid place like a refrigerator with a humidifier in it.
Okay.
Or a tub, a large plastic tub that you put a lid on and put it in your refrigerator. And then the longer you let them sit, well, they'll just persist there. And when you take them out, you take out a bowl full a week and set them on the counter, and they ripen and soften.
Okay.
The ones in the grocery store have been treated that way. They have been harvested because they're rock hard in November.
Okay.
They're very sour. And then they don't soften unless they sit in that cool, steady temperature.
Okay.
So, side note, when they tell you in the literature that one female vine can make 180 pounds of fruit, they weren't kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
So you will get
if you have a male or if you have a self-pollinator.
if you have male or self-pollinator.
Okay.
My male is right beside my self-pollinator, so I'll never know how well that's
Sure.
working. But I get wheelbarrow loads of fruit.
Awesome. Do you make kiwi jam?
I brought some kiwi jam.
Awesome.
But the hardy kiwis are much easier to grow, and you eat them right off the vine to the point that they also never make it to the kitchen. They get eaten in the yard.
And they're like smaller too,
They're
right? And fuzzy.
Size of a
fuzzless.
pecan, and they're smooth green. You just eat the whole thing. And people that grow kiwis, you don't even bother peeling them. You just eat the fuzz and everything.
Sure.
So I'm trying to think of what else I have that I love. I mean, I have blueberries, which I like. I have blackberries that I like. One of the best being Vaughn, that was developed here.
Okay.
You said you grew up in Japan. Do you do persimmons?
Yes, I do. Kaki. My garden butts up against woods, and so ambrosia beetle hit things, and they love persimmon, especially Asian persimmon. And once they wound the tree, then the persimmon borers move in.
Oh gosh.
And it's a lot of work to keep them out of a tree. Once they're in it, especially the ambrosia beetle, once they've infested the wood, it's a doomsday thing.
Sure.
So I have to replant them. I can eat Asian persimmons pretty much any day, all day long. I never get tired of them. They don't have a kind of flavor that's big that a lot of people are going to like, but the crunchy texture, I really like the texture and I like that flavor. I like berries are easy, so I grow a lot of berries.
Okay.
But all the standards, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, aronia berries. I do have a weird tree that a lot of people aren't growing. It's called an Ogeechee lime, and it's not a citrus. It's from the Ogeechee River in South Carolina, and it's a tupelo. It's
Okay.
like a swamp tupelo or something. It's Nissa, I don't know how they say it.
Yeah.
Ogeechee is the species name. And instead of being like a regular black gum, it makes a big fruit. And it's very sour and it's kind of metallic. And so it's called a lime. And I heard about them, read about them, was interested in them. The literature I was reading was talking about them living in riverland, beside rivers and further south than here. And then I happened to go to a botanic garden that had some, and they were in a gravel parking lot, and the trees were not 60 feet tall. They were about 15 feet tall.
Which is perfect.
And I said, I can handle this in my yard.
Yeah.
And the guy said, well, the season's over, but there's probably some rotting fruit down in the ground here, and you can just dig them out. And so I brought home like 12 seeds, and I planted them, and only 2 of them sprouted, and a lot of them sprouted, but only 2 thrived and persisted. And one was a boy, and one was a girl.
Lucky.
And I got fruit. I now have them planted out in the yard. They've survived just fine. So they are. You do need a ladder to climb them and pick the fruit. Okay. And I'm assuming that at some point the squirrels are going to figure out that there's fruit in that tree. So that will be one that will be hard to fight for.
Yeah.
I grow cornelian cherries, which are Cornus moss. You have to really like cherry, because that's an intense cherry flavor when you cook it down.
Okay.
Another plant that I grow that is one of my favorites. It's very popular in the northern part of South America, from Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico up to the Yucatan Peninsula, is a eggplant relative called cocona. It's a ping pong ball size. It can be orange or gold or pale yellow, kind of fuzzy, but when the fuzz starts to fall off, that's when they're ripe. They don't taste like much raw, but you cook them with some water and sprinkle some sugar. It doesn't matter how much sugar you put in there. You can just put a little bit, you can put a lot, and maybe a splash of lemon, and it tastes like mango and pineapple and all this stuff together.
Oh, wow.
It's a real impressive fruit, and it's like an eggplant. You just plant it out in the spring and harvest in the fall. You can wait till frost, and they'll start to damage the leaves, but it is. Remember the plant that was in here called bed of nails? It was a big leafed perennial, and it had this Solanum quitoense. Cocona is a sister plant to that, but it's not. It's a different species. Cocona does not have the thorns on the top of the leaves.
Right.
But anyway, it's a very useful plant because you don't really take care of it. You plant it in a row back in the back, and you wait till fall and go out and harvest the fruit.
Awesome.
So it's a nice flavor. It's very popular down south.
Okay.
And I mean south of the border, south.
Any questions from the audience about exotic fruits?
Not particularly.
How to grow them?
I will say there are about 10 minutes left in the program, so
Okay.
I really think you all got to tuck in and get in.
Okay,
All
well,
right.
these are key limes, which the rest of the world calls Mexican limes, but we in America call them key limes.
No kidding.
They came from Mexico, across the Gulf into Florida.
Right.
So Florida claims them in America, but the rest of the world, they're Mexican limes. They turn
USA.
yellow when they're ripe. And so if you see a green key lime pie, they were made with unripe limes. They are small, but they're very juicy. It only takes about 12 to 14 limes to make a key lime pie. We don't need to taste those.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to taste kumquats, which are one of my favorite fruits. Kumquats are a nice citrus to grow in a pot on your porch.
All right.
This is you want to kumquat?
I will have one.
Alexander, do you want? No?
Okay, so this is nagami. How you eat a kumquat is you bite it in half. You eat the whole thing.
Okay.
There are seeds the size of an orange seed in the center, so you're going to want to spit those out.
All right.
So what you do is you bite the top off.
All right.
The peeling is sweetish and the inside is sour. And then you get rid of the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then you eat the rest of it.
That's really nice. Yeah, it's like eating those candies that have a sour part and a sweet part. It's really neat. Yeah, I'm going to move my mic away from my mouth so you don't hear me chew.
And this is another citrus. Looks like another type of kumquat, but it's not. This is the national food of the Philippines, called a calamandan. And some of the literature says it's a naturally occurring hybrid between a kumquat and a tangerine.
Okay, you got to peel this one.
Well, I wouldn't eat it. It's very, very, very sour. You can
Okay.
taste it. I would not put the whole thing in your
All
mouth.
right, I'll try a little
Okay,
bit.
the reason you would grow these in a pot is because they tend to fruit all the time.
Okay.
There might be 1 month of the year that there are no fruit on the bush. And this is a small bush that would fit on anybody's porch.
What's the name of this again?
Calamondin.
Calamondin. Okay,
And
C-A-L-M-I-N-D.
the Filipino people would call it calamansi
Okay.
or calamansa.
And you want us to save some of these for you? Did you ever have these in the Philippines?
And they sell them as a medicinal plant in the green stage to the yellow stage to the orange stage. The reason to grow them is that if you're cooking something and you want a citrus blast and you don't have a lemon, you can just squeeze it over the top. You don't even have to peel it. Just grab the whole thing because it's soft skinned and squeeze the juice into your fish or whatever you're cooking.
And it's tart, but it's not lemon tart.
Yeah.
It's good though.
They say if you eat the skin at the same time, it's easier to eat.
Okay.
Then I brought a weed. This is that other tomato species. It's not like a persicon, the one that regular tomato. This is the little currant tomato.
Currant tomatoes, yeah.
Right. So
Never tried one.
they will take over the world. They die in the winter.
Okay.
But anyway, I don't know how well these are going to taste. These are from the greenhouse. They grows a weed in the greenhouse. But the reason I like them is that they keep making fruit down low because they're kind of shrubby. They'll have fruit on them all the way up to December. And they're not affected by the temperature, the cooling down. The flavor isn't affected by the temperature like a regular tomato is. You might be able to keep a tomato alive late into the year, but the tomatoes don't have any flavor.
Okay.
These will continue to have flavor.
I was just at the farmer's market over the weekend, and there was a fellow selling all kinds of tomatoes, including currant tomatoes.
Yeah. Once you have them, you'll have them. They show up in every flower pot. They show up in every flower bed. So what I do in the November is I go out and get them, and I roast them with herbs from the garden and olive oil, and then dehydrate that. I roast them and then dehydrate them, and they become something you sprinkle over a salad or sprinkle over a pasta.
Sure, that brings out, I presume, umami.
Yeah.
And
These, none of the herb is coming out in these.
very good. I love roasted tomatoes.
Yeah.
They're excellent.
So this is the loquat jam. I don't know if you want to put it on a cracker.
Sure, why not? You want some?
I'm okay.
You're okay. Loquat. Okay.
Biwa.
Biwa. Well, that's very good.
Yeah.
Kind of peachy.
Yep. Like the fresh, they have more of that sweet tart, and then the sweet tart candy and apricot cooked, they do get a peach tone.
Mm-hmm.
We've discovered that the mume apricots, when you cook them a long time to soften them, they taste like an intense peach.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
So peaches are hard to grow.
Yeah.
I know.
So grow mumes instead.
Yeah, mumes
They're not hard to grow.
they're easy to grow.
I once was going to propagate a whole bunch of those, and I put them in water to soften up the flesh to get it off to get to the seeds. Forgot I did that. Accidentally made apricot wine, which wasn't terrible. It would have been way better if I had done so intentionally and put sugar in there with it in the first place.
A couple of years
But-
ago, we did one of these midweeks about Prunus mume, and Mark brought some wine, and we had a wine tasting on.
Sure. It was nice. It was naturally sparkling. It was pretty delightful.
This is blood orange jelly.
Blood orange. Okay.
Yeah. I brought blood orange. Now these are way past prime. They were not coloring up in January, which is normal, because I hadn't had the time to really chill down the greenhouse. You got to get it pretty cold, like in the 30s, in order to get the blood oranges to really turn red on the outside.
Okay.
So I did bring a knife so I can cut one open so you can see what they do on the inside. This type often doesn't get the wine red interior.
Yeah.
It's more sprinkled throughout, but I like it
Okay.
better. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it was very tasty. The time I've only bought blood oranges once or twice, and they were pretty bland from the store.
Mhm.
This jam is not bland at all. It's very orangey.
See how it just has streaks?
Yeah.
Normally they would be
Point that way. Yeah.
normally they would be more vivid. But this was a bad year because John's a bad gardener.
Yeah.
Do
we
you
have-
look up recipes for the jams when you make them, or do you just do straight jam every time?
Pretty much straight jams every time. We do what we call the 7 and 4, where it's 7 cups of fruit
Okay.
and 4 cups of sugar instead of the reverse. Most
Okay.
recipes, it's 7 cups of sugar and 4 cups
Yeah.
of
Sugar.
sugar's amazing what it does, but
Right.
so this is jabuticaba, which is the tree. You see pictures of it online. A tropical tree that the fruit is right on the trunk of the tree.
Huh.
Purple Brazilian grape tree. Very easy to grow.
Huh.
Mildly frost tolerant. I mean, it'll take it down to 28.
Oh, wow.
On a rare occasion. It can't do it every night.
Sure.
It does taste like a Concord grape fresh.
Okay.
But when you cook it, it tastes special.
Okay.
And I haven't
Special
tasted
good or special bad?
Special good.
Okay.
Like a not Concord grape, like a berry tropical. I haven't tasted this batch, so I don't know what this one's going to. Oh, I just spilled some on my pants.
Describe it for us, Dennis.
It's delicious. It is very grapey.
Oh,
If you had to get poetic about it.
If I had to get poetic about it,
Yeah.
there's something else in there besides grape to me. Yeah.
lemon.
Yeah. There's some tartness in there. I don't know. I can't really. My
Okay.
muse is failing me.
Now
Interesting.
I grow Concord grapes too, and they make real good jam.
No doubt.
I mean, it's like little kid Welch's grape.
Sure.
Here's kiwi with a little jabuticaba mixed in.
Right?
Yeah, we need more crackers.
Yeah. Who knew? Here. I didn't see we hadn't gone through the first half.
And I don't. Kiwi gets a little leathery, but
Leathery.
the fun thing to do is when you're making jam at the holidays is to do kiwi jam and then a red jam like pomegranate and split the jar.
Huh.
Do half, let it cool down, and then pour another cup of the red on top. So you have
Yeah.
green on the bottom and red on the top.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Fun and festive.
Good.
Yeah.
Tastes like kiwi.
Got
More
that
intense. though.
tang.
Yeah. All of these are more intense than in the fruits themselves
Yeah.
are, I think.
The whole gelling thing, is taking a fruit, cooking it into bits so it's dispersed in the liquid, and the addition of sugar and the addition of a little bit of acid, usually lemon juice,
Okay.
causes that gelling. A lot of these, you don't even need to add pectin. There's so much pectin already in them.
Whenever I make fruit pies, I always put lemon juice in them because the citrus brightens up the pie.
Yeah, yeah.
But you got all these random weird citrus fruits that you could presume. Do you do that instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially like the calamanans, which are a little hard to eat raw. And most of the countries that use them, they're considered medicine, and they think of them as a
Sure.
medicinal plant rather than a dessert plant. But the fruit juice is a little different than lemon in something, but it's pleasant. I mean,
Sure.
it's just a bright flavor.
Do you
No
do
doubt.
any jams that are not fruit, but that's something else that's they're botanically
Yes.
fruits, but they're not.
Yeah, but I
Culinarily
don't
fruits?
do any of the herb jams, but I will do fruit and herb mixes.
Right.
And then I hate to say it on the air, but Japanese knotweed,
Okay.
which is why I quit growing rhubarb.
Yeah.
Japanese knotweed tastes like rhubarb.
The stems?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
so
Don't grow Japanese knotweed.
don't grow it. Just go harvest it in the
Horrible
woods.
weed.
You know?
It's a horrible
It's
weed.
invasive.
It's very invasive, and it's almost impossible to kill.
Yeah, you'll never get rid of it.
Yeah.
You can't buy
they
it.
used to
so-
sell it, and I got one
Yep.
decades ago, and I'm still trying to kill it. Every year it sends up a shoot. Every year I'm out there pulling out the shoots by
You
the
can
roots.
just
and
eat them raw, or you can cook them.
Did not know that. That's
Yep.
interesting. Now I know what to do when a
Yes.
shoot appears.
And it'll, most years, depending on how cool it is when it's sprouting, it can taste just like rhubarb.
How about that?
Well,
Very cool.
so that's it, really. Everything else is
Well, thank you for bringing this stuff.
brought some
Last second
oranges.
show and tell of some stuff. Thank you for bringing all this out and talking to us about your exotic fruit collection and growing them in North Carolina. And thanks for cluing us in on what to do for our fair competition.
Yeah.
I can't
Get
wait.
some blue ribbon winners out there.
Yeah, hopefully one of y'all, if one of y'all win a blue ribbon, please let us know. That'd be great.
It didn't look like there were really any questions. There was one question we got. Diane said there's an orange tree west of the Xeric Garden.
Oh, yeah.
Do
There's
you, Dennis? West is that way.
Yeah,
but
I'm thinking
in the
well,
Asian garden, there's the 2 citrus there.
Sure, yeah.
That's east, but
Yeah.
and one of those is hardy citrus is the parent, and the other one I think is grapefruit is the
Yeah,
parent.
I have one of those in my yard too.
Okay, and the flavor?
It's blackberry. Yeah, it's a very intense grapefruit flavor.
So you have to really like grapefruit.
And no matter any of the Ponceris hybrids have a hint of that resiny taste that's hard to get rid of.
Sure.
I mean, grapefruit's pretty harsh anyway, and that hybrid one is intense. But if you like grapefruit juice, you just water it down. Put some baking soda in there, and it'll soften it. It just tastes. But you got to like grapefruit.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
I'm not a
flavor.
grapefruit fan. Yeah.
And certain medications you're not supposed to eat grapefruit or drink juice. So
That's true. That is also, to a lesser extent, true with any citrus.
yeah, they all have that.
There's that enzyme that messes up your
Stomach lining, makes you
Yeah.
absorb too much
makes
medicine.
you absorb too many drugs.
Now, if they're talking about Ponceris trifoliata, if it's here, if you have one, I've used it cooking too, and it's a nightmare as far as you got to water it down so much.
Okay.
It's so strong and so a weird resiny taste that's just hard to mix with anything else.
I've heard they go good in gin and tonics.
Yes.
Really?
I also grow the Australian finger limes, the weird little citrus from Australia.
Sure.
And they also, to me, they taste like the way citronella candles smell.
Huh.
Okay.
But everybody that cuts into one and busts it out and tastes it says gin and tonic.
Now I know what to do this fall when there are Ponceris fruits.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I tried making marmalade from the peeling, and it was okay, but it is that resiny flavor. You can get away from it.
Okay.
But it is nice to have a hardy citrus.
Yeah, they're very pretty.
Yeah, and
the bark is real pretty.
Yeah, and I have inspired by that one. I have one. I don't have the lemony one. I have the grapefruit one, and it's impressive in the yard when it's all full of fruit.
No doubt.
Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
everybody sees it and goes, "That's a grapefruit."
It was nice a couple weeks ago, covered in flowers with those nice fragrant flowers. That was really something else.
The other thing I will say about the calamond, and the reason it makes a good porch plant, is because its flowers are a little smaller and star-shaped, and they have a different flavor, different aroma than most citrus, in that it smells like some sort of orange candy. Like the way an orange candy tastes, that's how their flowers smell. So I'm not a fan of calamond, except that it's handy to have around, and it fruits all year. Same with Meyer lemons.
Well, so you said that these are staying here. They're not going back with you.
They're not going back with me.
So I might see if Sophia will take some seeds, and maybe we can have all have a calamond or one of these others.
Okay, well, there is a problem with citrus from seed.
Yeah.
They have a tendency, when seed grown, to be locked in a juvenile stage, and they can take up to 15 years to fruit.
Okay.
So that's why everybody buys grafted citrus.
So
now,
caveat.
I will say that the key lime that I have was seed grown. It was not a grafted tree.
Nice.
But that's rare.
Sure.
Usually they...
And how long did that take to fruit?
Somebody gave it to me at a foot tall, and I think it had to get to 4 feet before I got some fruit. It's like 12 feet tall now.
So if you're
and these,
55 or younger, it'd be good to start these from seed.
Start seed now.
Yeah. And quit smoking too, and then maybe you'll live long enough.
Well, and the other beauty, of citrus is they're perfect flowers, so they don't need pollination.
Right.
They'll make fruit no matter what.
Yep.
Nice.
I see videos of people talking about how they live in the tundra somewhere in Canada or Iceland, and they go out and they have a greenhouse in their sunroom, and they have a lemon tree, and they get out with a paintbrush. I'm like, you don't have to do that. The flowers are perfect.
Yeah.
They do it.
They self-pollinate, or they
make seedlings.
parthenogenesis.
Yeah.
Right. They will the seeds are basically clone of the mom in
Yep.
some of the citrus. So yeah,
Yep. So it's
which I learned from John Dole in the floriculture
When you were a
class.
student.
Yeah, when I was a student.
Anyway, that's it for show and tell.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
I know
enjoyed all
you-
of it.
The basement is stacks of jars of jelly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You
Kind
said
of
you
the
have
foundation.
thousands of them.
Thousands.
Yeah,
Well, because they don't make recipes for like 4 jars.
Right.
They make recipes for 12 jars.
gallons of it, right?
And-
so
and-
you have jelly parties. You know,
No, I
bring your own crackers, but the jelly's free.
I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
I do. People do tend to go home with jelly, whether they want it or not, when they leave the house.
Sure.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Well, that looks like that is all of the time we have for today. But thank you, John, for coming out here and bringing all these lovely things for us to try. And thank you, Dennis, for leading us through this conversation.
It was very fun.
It was.
This
It was wonderful
this
to hear.
One of my favorite ones because
I bet.
You got to eat.
Yeah, I
I
got
bet.
to eat. Exactly.
No kidding. Awesome. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. We will be back next Wednesday at 3 o'clock. We'll be doing Tim's top plant picks for May. So make sure you join us for that. It should be a good program. We'll see y'all then. Y'all take care.